increase faster. So we say the LM shift down. Okay, conversely, if you have contractionary policy, okay, although M drops, but there is still inflation, so money is still growing, but now slower. Alright, in this case you could see because the fall in M contracted the country's output. So we say GM, money growth is slower, LM will have to shift up. Okay, alright, so revising the model is no longer just changing the curve, but also looking at how you shift the LM. So you don't just happily change the axis to a pi, but you must know the LM shift not because of M anymore, but more on P as well as the 1. Okay, so with that we ended off looking at page 46, okay, the exercise question. Alright, so this exercise question is page 46, shows you have a choice. Alright, if you have a fall in AD, okay, I gave you the outline yesterday and I showed you, you have a choice to discuss P drops or pi drops. So the answer I gave you was pi drop. And you realize it's not so easy. You have to keep toggling between Phillips curve, alright, and Okun's law. So in this case, you can discuss P drops. Alright, okay, alright, if it is a fall in AD. Because, right, this is accompanied by Y drop. But a better answer in the exam is pi drops. Okay, so in terms of analysis, they are no longer that straightforward. You must be very careful. Okay, so it's not a mere change of axis to look good. The analysis itself tends to be higher level. Okay, but our discussion is not merely just ADAS. Okay, eventually, this is the focus of today's lecture. We want to use the model to discuss business cycle. We want to prove that in an economy, alright, whenever you have a liquidity trap, you will lead on to a deflation. Okay, alright, so we want to use our revised ADAS model to prove. And you can see, later on when I discuss the phenomenon with you, by using the ISLM ADAS, it was very consistent that in the entire analysis, because you keep shifting the AD leftwards, pi will drop. Okay? And the economic phenomenon will show interest rate will keep falling, output will keep falling. Okay? So this is just an introduction to you to show you. If we want to prove how a liquidity trap will lead into a deflation, all your concepts must consistently talk about pi, I, and y. They are all forming. However, you may want to take note, when you take the pi and I together, you can apply it to the Fisher's equation. Alright, and specifically, the drop in I is smaller. So if both were to drop, alright, but the numerator drops smaller. The denominator has a minus sign. Okay, the R will decrease. So this is not easy. So later on, I will emphasize these factors. So these are the three economic variables, pi, I, and y. But specifically, R will go up. Alright, the R will actually go up as the pi drops and the pi becomes negative. But this is the onset of the events. So we're going to use a set of diagrams. Then I recognize the space is a bit too small. So we may want to redraw a new set on a foolscap paper with me. Okay, then you transfer it back. So the diagram is not going to look easy. So take out a piece of paper and you can see, when you go back and redraw, there are 6 key points you must observe in this diagram. So this diagram cannot be drawn in a haphazard manner. It has to be drawn with very specific intention in mind. Number 1, the economy must be in recession first. Alright, so your output must have your yn all the way in the far right. Your output is very much lower than yn at 1. Okay? Don't draw yet, just go through the key points. When you draw your ISLN, interest rate must start at very low because you have a recession. Banks already have been cutting interest rate to stimulate spending. So not only that, you must also have low inflation because AD is very low and low output. So these are the key characteristics. But how do you draw your ISLN? Your LM must show the liquidity trap and it must also show the upward segment. You can draw the upward segment as a curve or a straight line. Okay, right? Then the vertical axis for ADARs is no longer pi and 0, but you deliberately include a segment for it to go below 0. Okay, alright? And then finally, in your diagram, you take note where is the liquidity trap, mark out the E star. And you must remember, the meaning of liquidity trap means the LM cannot go below it. So every time when you shift the LM, you will pivot at E star. Okay, so with that, we're ready to draw. Okay, so the top and the bottom diagram must match because they are reflecting output. Top diagram is ISLM, so axis is interest rate income. Bottom diagram is inflation and output with a 0 sign, and both a positive and negative segment. Okay, so this is what I meant. Mark out your YN all the way to the far right. But currently, you're not there yet. You're in a recession, so mark out your Y1. Okay, so start the economy with a recession. But you know, to get this Y1, there must be ISLN. But you have an intention to illustrate the economy may fall into a liquidity trap. Right? So at Y1, you are not at the liquidity trap yet. You're just in a recession. For you to fall into a liquidity trap, you must have a critical income. We call it Y star. Okay? And the meaning of a liquidity trap means interest rate is near 0. We only want to hold money. H2 infinite, so we know. For income 0 to Y star. Now, you can choose to draw above the 0 axis. But I don't want you to because some of you will do parallel shift down. So to avoid that mistake, you can, for this purpose, draw on the 0 axis. But you don't say interest rate is 0. You just say interest rate is near 0. So for 0 to Y star, this is your liquidity trap. Alright, where you can see your interest rate is near, don't put the I1 first, I need the I1 first, okay, but your H2 is infinite. But you must see, you're not there yet. You're at a recession. The meaning of recession, Y1 less than Y10. Right, so for this portion, you can just draw upward sloping straight line. You can draw a curve if you want to, like the lecture notes. If not, just draw it as a straight line. Okay, so you know you are at Y1. Okay, so you must have IS there. Okay, and this is your R1. Right, but you must make mention, this is already very low. Just that graphically, for it to look neat, we put it here. Okay, so economy is in a recession, point A. Interest rate I1 is very low. Output Y1 less than Y. So bring it down. Remember, ISLM will give you a point of your AD. So draw your AD. It's okay if you cut below the zero axis. Then draw your AS. Okay? Make your AS very flat. It's easier to draw later. So that's your SRAS 1.8. So why I want it to be very flat is because I want my inflation rate, pi 1, to be very low as well. So you need quite a fair bit of practice. Right? You may not draw correctly in the first round. But to go back and practice, because you want to illustrate. You have a low interest rate, a low inflation rate, and a low output at point A. Okay, so we'll toggle between the lecture notes, so you are initially at point A. But the meaning of a recession means Y is less than Yn, U is more than Un. And we know workers will lower pi E because they know, right, economy is not doing well. They don't think inflation will hit home. So as a result, W increase slower. And the SRAS must shift right. So this is what happens in a typical short run, long run adjustment. We did it in last week's lecture. If your output is always on the left, workers will slow down wage increase, firms will hire them, output will increase. So the first thing you want to do is to shift the SRAS to the right. Okay, so you go to the diagram and you see carefully. Okay, and this is how I want you to shift. You know it's going to shift down. Okay, but when you shift it down, for the convenience of drawing, it's just for convenience, mark out Y star so that your line will cut through Y star. So AS shift to the right, but let it cut through Y star because I need the AD to cut Y star later. But in the exam, if you didn't know, it's finite. Okay, so you reach point B. So you can see, right, as we lower our expectation on inflation, wages drop, AS shift right. No need to mark out inflation, just write out pi will drop. Okay, and intuitively we know LM must shift right. I just recap with you. Money is always growing, but now A to B output increase. So money grows faster. So after you shifted the AS, you shift the LM, but LM, you cannot shift the thing down, you're already on 0, so you must pivot at Y star. Okay, so it's a bit tricky. Look at this point B, it must go up. So your points can be a bit tight. But if you cannot mark up, just arbitrarily put a point B. The examiner won't really check because he knows it's very difficult to draw. So this is what you wanted. Your LM to shift down. Right? So this is due to pi drops, money grows faster as output increases. So this is what we learned in yesterday's lecture. We thought that in an economy, if workers have flexible wages and flexible prices, workers lower their wage or increase it slower, AS shift right, LM shift down. Right? But what you see is this. Okay? Interest rates continue to drop. So this first step is still quite easy. Right? The occurrence of a recession, shift AS to the right, shift LM to the right, or you can say shift down. Okay, so let's complete the summary here. SRA shift right, LM also shift to the right. Okay, so all in all, you reach point B. That was your step 1 and 2. Shift AS, okay, shift LM. However, okay, so you have this denominators. Okay, both already are very small. Okay, both are actually very small. And now, I dropped, pi also drops, but I will drop smaller. Because in the economy, banks with very low interest rates don't want to further cut it too much. They're very slow. Alright, so intuitively, R will go up. If you can't grasp this equation, then think carefully the logic. Okay? Do you think firms would want to invest when the increase in price is slower? The economy is recovering. Do you think they believe interest rate will continue to plunge? They won't. Firms, when they borrow money, they need to repay. When they repay, one way is through prices of goods. The prices of goods will keep slowing down. He is not keen to invest because he also knows long-run interest rate will go up. This is a very technical point. Alright, so you have to anchor on very well. So in this case, the economy will not be at point 2. Firms will react negatively. They will not think this is a good situation. They believe R will go up. So in this case, you would shift your IS to the left. And I exaggerated it. Okay, so instead of going rightwards, you're going to shift IS leftwards. Okay, due to R goes up. So generally, firms believe long-run interest rate will go up. It will not continue to stay long. And coupled with the fact that inflation rate is falling, investment drops. Keep up me up. I exaggerated that I want the economy to shift the IS deliberately to Y star. It's deliberate. Because I do a lot of shortcuts. If you read textbook, they do multiple shifts. It confuses you. So A goes to B. Okay? And in this case, you reach point E star. So, and you can see output will drop. So if you shift your IS to the left, okay, you also must shift AD to the left to reach your Y star. So this is your step 3. Shift IS backwards. And this is your step 4. So what do you see? Because of firms' adverse reaction, they did not take the opportunity to invest. They believe long-run interest rate will go up. We exaggerated it that investment will go down so significantly, it goes all the way to E star. Interest rate plunge to near 0. Remember, it's not 0, it's just near 0. And not only that, the pi drops to 0. Right? So in this case, the economy reached point E star. So what do you see? You started at E1, you ended at Y star. You are going leftwards. So in this case, a recession at point A went to point B. But you ended up in a depression at point E star. Right? This is due to the drop in IS is more than the increase in LM as R increases. So this is how you illustrate. Economy don't recover. In the real world, IS will go leftwards. You reach E star. Depression means output drops. They are lesser than Y1. Okay, right? So what will government do? Government will panic. She saw the economy sinking. Okay, now all this I narrate to you are given in page 48, so don't worry. When I don't write anything on the screen, it's okay one. It means it's given in the next page. So now we want to look at government. Government will now adopt monetary policy. Okay, so we go to the diagram. You are at E star. How do you adopt monetary policy? Shift LM rightwards. But where can you shift? You are at E star. You cannot shift anything lower. You pivot at E star. So this is your step 5. So this shift of LM is due to expansionary monetary policy. Something happened, right, where interest rate and income stop changing. Household panic. They saw the amount of liquidity that the government pumped into the country. It's supposed to expand the economy, but you are stuck at point E star. You are at E star. If you shift LM, you are still at E star. Right? So in this case, this will result people who only hold money. You fell into a liquidity trap. So you don't go into a liquidity trap anytime you like. You must first have a recession, goes into a depression, adopt expansionary monetary policy, and people lose faith. Right? They saw that the economy is in a bad shape. Interest rate don't change, in fact near zero. You don't have to put money in the banks one. You will hold a lot of liquidity. Right? And H2, infinite. We fell into the liquidity trap, still at E star. Okay, so you go to the lecture notes. Where is the liquidity trap? You are still at E star. Right, where you can see shift of LM has no effect on I and Y. Therefore, H2 becomes infinite. So this is progressive. This is not overnight. It takes even months and years for it to take place. So that's why US is in the depression. She is fearful of a liquidity trap. It's not like next day there's a liquidity trap. It won't. It takes time. Right? So you can see a liquidity trap is one glass. Right? It is the doorstep of the quicksand. Then you want to further illustrate. Okay? What happens to the economy? How would you fall into deflation? Okay? See carefully at point E star. Okay? At point E star, look at the diagram. R is near 0. It's not 0 yet. Pi is 0. What would household do? Okay? They saw that prices don't change. They won't spend. They will wait further. They are not attracted by the low interest rate, but instead, they saw that prices don't change. They will further restrict spending. Okay, so you can draw it in another color. You can stand up. The IS now will continue to shift left. You will get your IS 2. Okay, so this is due to savings of the household goes up, consumption drops. And when pi became 0, firms are not attracted by interest rate. They continue to cut back investment. And you reach point F. So once you are at the liquidity trap, okay, household and firms will react now. They saw the policy don't work. They realize they are at very low income. They realize prices don't change. They will wait. So this waiting behavior of household, pessimism of firms. Shift IS one more time to IS3. You are at Y2. Income continue to drop. You are already in depression, now you are still in depression. So it didn't go away. So you could see the phenomenon. Income will keep falling. Interest rate keep falling until it is sticky at near zero. But what we want to reflect is here. If you bring it down, okay? Yours may not be too accurate. Try as much as you can. This is your income Y2. This is your corresponding point F. You also have an AB curve there. But what we want to show is pi, okay, or pi 3 is negative. And price starts to drop. So you may think that, hey, what is the big issue? The curve just keeps shifting left, huh? But the thing is, if price starts to drop, AB will continue to drop. In other words, you are always swimming inside liquidity trap and deflation. You can't get out already. Because the moment prices drop one round, you will wait. So if you wait, the AB continue to reduce. So you can see, the moment you fall into a liquidity trap, you fall into a deflation. And deflation, don't stop there. You continue on. So this is not an easy analysis. If you ask me, this is the toughest analysis. But if you cannot draw the bottom diagram, which is quite tedious because your curve must match. And in exam, this is very tedious. Then draw the top diagram. Where is the top diagram about? Top diagram is about LM, keep shifting right. IS, keep shifting left. You will get A, B, E star, and F. That's the key focal point. Right? So a liquidity trap, let's go back to the note here, will result in a deflation that you are at point F. This because, right, there was a shift of IS to IS2. So income continue to drop. Interest rate is near zero, but pi is right. So you could see it is by stages. Right. So this is not easy. So try your very best to do the first 3 steps first. Those 3 are easy. LM keep shifting to the right. IS keep shifting to the left. Then, how do you show deflation? Another round of IS to the left. Okay, right? So, like I mentioned, what is the key story? The key story is the drop in IS is always larger than the increase in LM. AD keeps falling. And that's how you get inflation keep dropping until it's negative. Interest rate keeps falling until it's near zero, and output keeps falling. When you have a recession turn into a depression, getting a liquidity trap, then a deflation. So if you see very carefully, Japan badly must get out of the liquidity trap. Because if you don't control it, she will fall into a deflation. US is in a depression. She is badly avoiding the liquidity trap. Alright, so you must imagine this is like a quicksand. You cannot be anywhere near it. So US is currently here, point B. Alright, so what does the US government do in order not to go to E-star? The US government released a lot of positive news saying that consumption goes up, there are jobs created, households are spending, so that IS can shift up. So the moment, you don't draw, but I'll just show you. Okay, the moment the IS of a country can go rightwards. For example, you go to here. You are moving away. You are not anywhere near the track. You will recover. So that's what US is doing, boosting a lot of confidence. If you hear me, remember I told you about Black Friday. Why is it important? Because it's a sign that people are willing to spend, firms will increase production for the next Black Friday. The IS will shift right. You will get away from the liquidity trap. Right? So therefore, if you are stuck here, the only thing you can do is to shift our IS to the right, which is the Japan government is doing, trying so hard. And later in topic 9, you can see the Japan government is spending too much that it is 200% of the GDP because they have no choice. If you want to get out of the liquidity trap, if you are at point E star, how do you get out? You cannot shift LM anymore. All you can do is to shift IS. So you hope Japan, this is what she wants. She wants E star to go to E prime. So the only solution is spending. So you must feed the economy with a lot of good news. You can't send them bad news. Right? Okay, so this is the complexity of applying the ATAS model. So hear me clearly, in the exam, if you cannot draw, in fact, okay, this is not easy to draw. As long as you can draw ISLM, A to B, then shift IS to B star, then continue to shift, you will get the marks. Don't worry too much about ATAS. Right? Because intuitively, AE will keep shifting left, pi will drop. Okay, so inflation, or should I say deflation in this case, is very harmful. You land the economy in such a devastating state, you can't recover. You cannot think that economy is so simple by shifting curve. Right? It's complicated, it goes more than that. So imagine when the economy has supply shocks, oil crisis, the LM shift upwards. The economy will shrink output even faster. Right? So that is the state of what the world economy is facing right now. Okay, so later when I do tutorial 5 with you, you can see there's actually one question, but you don't need to draw. Right? You just need the top diagram. Okay, so with this is the discussion on page 47 to 48. Okay, go back, transfer in the diagram, with the top diagram will be sufficient. And you can see in page 48, I type out for you the lengthy analysis, how the event unfolds. Okay, but with that, we'll move on to page 49 to wrap up topic 8. So we saw deflation is very harmful. Okay, deflation is very harmful. Okay, because the economy cannot recover. So the government does not aim for deflation at all. So instead, government aim for disinflation, that is, pie drops, where we see that price increase but slower. Alright, so government don't aim for deflation, government aim for disinflation. But for disinflation to take place, it is through lowering your AD. Okay, so in this case, government will use contractionary monetary policy. Government won't use contractionary fiscal policy. It's politically unpopular. You cannot raise taxes. People will hate you. Okay, so if you want to pursue disinflation, you will want to lower AD by using contractionary monetary policy. Therefore, output will drop. However, unemployment will increase. So we know this is the Phillips curve discussion. There's always a trade-off between pi and the U. Right? But if you want to ask government to pursue disinflation, you don't just tell him unemployment will increase. You want to tell him how much. Alright? So there's a value to calculate. Alright? And this value is known as the sacrifice ratio. Okay? So in short, we call it the SR. And SR generally is a value 2%. So it tells you, for example, if you want to bring down inflation rate by 1%, then unemployment rate will increase 2%, right? But it is actually 2% plus the natural rate. So it's 2 times of change in time. Okay? Now, or if you think inflation is so serious, you want to cut it down by 5%, right, as given here, then you can see unemployment will go up by 2 times of it. Okay, you can multiply a 2 or a 5 here with a 2 across. So unemployment will worsen by 10%, but it is plus the UN. Okay, so put a plus there. It shouldn't be a minus. Right, so sacrifice ratio is a convenient way to predict every inflation rate that you cut, the possible impact on unemployment. Alright, okay, and it's not just unemployment increase, but you add on to the natural rate. Okay, so in this case, this is what you want to highlight. Okay, since pi drops, u increase plus the un. Right, so therefore it is crucial for government 261 to keep pi low. Therefore, the need to reduce pi is less crucial. So if your inflation rate has been low, then if there is inflation, it is not crucial. Okay, so for example, if your inflation in year 2012 was only a 0.2%, now it went up to, say, a 1.2. Alright, so in this case, inflation went up by a change of 1%. It's not crucial to lower it because 1.2 inflation rate is still acceptable. Right? So that is one message to tell you. If you know there is a sacrifice ratio, right? First thing first is you know workers will be retrenched. First of all, you should know or you should aim to keep your initial inflation rate very low. Okay, right? Then secondly is to also keep your UN very low. Example, Singapore. I don't remember what's the other country. I don't have the data with me. Okay, you check later on. But Singapore's UN is very low. So even if you want to bring inflation rate goes down. Okay, even if you want to bring inflation rate down, if Singapore's UN is low, you only add a 2 to the low UN. Okay, versus the high UN in Spain and US. Look at these two countries. Spain, if you remember, is 18.9. You're going to add a 2 to an 18.9 is 20%. That's a lot of people being retrenched. Or you look at US. US is 6.9. Alright, so if US, you want to bring down inflation rate, you add it to the existing 6.9. Then bringing down inflation is very costly. Okay, so in summary, government don't pursue deflation. We saw the harms of it. The economy literally string backwards, all the way to the left. So therefore, government should pursue disinflation. But the pursuit of it, it's not, alright, without harms. The harms is unemployment through the sacrifice ratio. Right, so the bottom line is keep pi low so that you don't need to tackle inflation, or to keep UN low. So this will bring you back to topic 7. That's why Singapore government do not allow minimum wage law, do not allow strong trade union bargaining. Alright, it tries to curb structural and frictional unemployment. Okay, so when you study this concept in page 49, don't just study that there's a value 2. This is not a calculation topic, it's analytical. Right? So you read it in macro perspective, what is the impact or the implication to government? Right? So with that, we move on to the discussion. So, pursuing this inflation is costly. Therefore, right, economy will consider, okay, how fast do you want to bring down your inflation? So in this case, okay,